Hello and welcome to our nice little interview here at DreieichCon, and we are honored to have you as our special guest today, the first special guest in fact, via live talk, and we are honored to have you here. Would you be so kind to introduce yourself to our community, to the people out there?
Yes, my name is Krister Sundelin, and I am the lead designer and writer of the Troubleshooters and other games for Helmgast in Sweden. This is my first time here, so I'm very honored to be here. I've been writing role-playing games since I was since the early 90s, I guess, and playing since the early 80s. So I've been around in the hobby for a while.
Yeah. And how did you discover the need to do your own thing in the TTRPG world? How did it, or where did the inspiration come to write an own TTRPG?
I think that everyone who has ever played a role-playing game has started with making house rules, and then thinking, how about compiling these house rules into a game? And that started for me like in 1992, 1993, thereabouts. I wasn't good at it then. But I wrote my first game and published it in 1997. Print on demand was just starting back then. So I tried my wings back then.
And what was the game you first published, or what was the first game you ever tried to mangle with creating TTRPGs?
Yeah, the first game that I played, and hence house ruled, was Drakar och Demoner. It's published as Dragonbane now.
Yeah.
In like 6th or 7th edition, or something like that.
Yeah.
The first one was a blue box, very small blue box with a white leaf pamphlet in 48 pages, and it wasn't very good that either. So we tried to improve it and house rule and fix it, and
And so it got started with DOD, Drakar och Demoner.
Yes.
And you rolled with it, and
I think it was Fredrik Malmberg of Cabinet Entertainment. He bought the rights to what's it called, basic role playing, for $1 because nobody thought that it would make any money.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
And from there it started. That basically kicked off the Swedish role playing industry like 40 years ago.
Yeah. It's amazing to see that the Swedish TTRPG world kind of exploded and landed where it is right now. So it hits my heart to hear that you started with DOD, because it emerges to be like one of my favorite games right now.
Yeah,
so
it's
that's
a great
interesting.
Game. And I was involved in that one too. I wrote the magic chapter.
Oh no, you did?
Yep.
Great stuff.
Yeah, and I'm really happy about Thomas Härenstam, the main author, about his feedback about it.
Yeah.
So we've had a great cooperation.
Wow. So that's that's so cool to hear that you're involved in all this, and like I said, it's like one of my favorite games right now. And how do you feel about the Swedish TTRPG world and where it landed now? How does it feel to be part of it in a way?
At one part, I just go on making my own games, because it's fun, and in another way, it's really. I don't really know how to describe it. I mean, you're part of something much bigger than you are, and at the same time you're not.
Yeah. Because you're like a little cogwheel, but still you moved something, right?
Yes.
That's so much bigger than yourself.
And that's, it's hard to describe that weird feeling.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling to sit there and contribute to something that's so much bigger than yourself, and living like its own thing, you know. So that's kind of interesting. But going back to Troubleshooters, you traveled from DOD, Drakkar och Demoner, to something like Troubleshooters. How did that happen, and where did the inspiration for that come from?
Well, the inspiration is quite easy. I mean, for quite a long time, if you weren't into like Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man, that was basically the only thing in comics entertainment that existed. All the Belgian, French and Belgian comics like Tintin, Spirou, Yokotsuno, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And those were basically my childhood.
Yeah.
We usually compare Sweden at the time to DDR. I mean, it was grey and it was and it wasn't fun to grow up there. Yeah. So that was my escape from that world. And at the same time, I entered role-playing games. So those two were my way out, my ways to escapism.
Yeah.
And then, as time went on, I mean, I think that everyone in Sweden has stolen a story from Spirou or Tintin.
In a way, yeah, I can imagine.
And then some years ago, there was a publisher who retranslated those albums and published them anew. And I thought the first one was Valerian and Laurelin.
Yeah.
And I thought, why haven't anyone made a role-playing game of this? And then I discovered the old cartoon, Once Upon a Time Space. It was on Netflix again. Yeah. Why has nobody ever done that? And then that same publisher started to publish and retranslate all the Spirou albums.
Yeah.
And same thing again. And eventually I just said, oh, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, right. Like everyone should, right?
Yeah.
If it's missing, someone needs to do it, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So thank you for doing Troubleshooters. As you can see, we are great fans.
Thank you.
Team Octopus, right?
Yep.
That would be the way to go,
well,
I guess. For us,
I forgot my octopus hat, I'm afraid. I couldn't find it, so I had to go for the other team.
Never mind. We can manage for now.
Think of it as an infiltrator.
Going back to inspirations and looking at maybe movies or comics and stuff, how do you see the inspiration in movies, series, comics and stuff? How important is it to consume such things for our community and for creating TTRPGs as oneself?
I think it is really important. I mean, no part of any culture stands on its own legs. It's always like 90% stealing stuff from someone else and then 10% adding your own stuff to it.
Yeah.
I think Picasso once said that amateurs borrow, professionals steal.
I can see that, yes. Yes.
So yeah, I don't think that anyone can make any good game or anything good in any culture without knowing what's already out there.
Yeah. Would you say, I imagine I can see the answer coming, but would you say stealing in a way is a bad thing in TTRPGs or generally?
I think stealing is a good thing. I mean, like
borrowing ideas, not stealing in general.
Borrowing ideas. Borrowing ideas, yes, but I think that stealing is quite an important thing because then you take something and make it your own.
Yeah.
And in a culture context, that evolves culture.
Yeah.
That makes it better. It makes it grow.
Yeah. Great. So, looking at Troubleshooters, where do you see, because maybe someone out there doesn't know what Troubleshooters is, would you kindly explain what the core idea for you was while creating Troubleshooters, beside the inspiration?
Yeah,
obviously, right?
I mean, one thing that united Carl Banks, Hergé, and Roger Leloup was that they all subscribed to National Geographics, and they all took inspiration of it and wrote. And instead of going to some exotic place, they wrote an adventure about it.
Yeah.
So when Carl Barks read about a story, there was a photo story about Nepal. Then he made his ducks go to Nepal or rather his version of it, Shangri-La. Tra-la-la, I mean. And that I think is a core of it. I call it fantasy tourism.
Yeah.
That you go to places virtually and have great adventures there.
Yeah.
And you do all that in a 1960s setting.
Yeah.
Because then you won't have any like internet or have easy access to information. You actually have to go there.
Yeah.
And because it is the end of the ocean liner era and the start of the jet era.
Yeah.
So travel is still exotic.
Yeah. And whilst you were talking about traveling and the idea of going places and doing this without smartphones and all these sorts, where do you see the most challenging part about playing as one character or as a player in this scenario, while we as people are so used at being at doing things with smartphones and stuff?
Yeah, I even added a little section about what things that don't exist in 1965.
I remember,
simply because I've heard so many young kids today say that, didn't you have internet when you grew up? And such a fascinating thing. That you don't have access to everything, every knowledge in the world in this one.
Yeah.
So but once you get that mindset in, that you have to go places, that you have to look into books in libraries, then they just run with it.
Yeah, yeah. What was your favorite moment whilst playing with other players who don't? Right. So do I have to repeat the question? I don't. All right. So I would just flip the switch to you.
Okay. I think the most fantastic thing was it was a journey from Paris to Sitomiang.
Yeah.
The invented place, and they decided to have to spend the extra money to travel first class. And then I described what a journey on a 747 was at that time in first class.
Yeah.
Like you had a real dinner on plates served at your seat, and from a trolley with, like that. Would you like that? Some more potatoes. And they were so amazed that was an experience back then. That it wasn't just shuffling a lot of people into a jetliner and then go fly somewhere. Yeah. That the travel in itself was an experience.
Yeah. So that's a thing I just recently had, which I recently discovered, that playing the journey is the experience.
It's a huge part of the experience. It shouldn't be forgotten.
Yes.
And also all the major hassle about getting a visa to get somewhere.
Yes.
I mean, nowadays within the Schengen area, you just hop on a plane and then you're there. It's a little bit more complicated if you want to go to the UK or the United States, but all here in Europe, we have the Schengen, and that works great.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people are really used to having it the old way.
Yeah. And whilst most of the other TTRPGs are more concentrating on teleporting away or skipping the whole experience of traveling, you managed to incorporate the travel and the experience of traveling so awesomely in Troubleshooters. Could you explain how you approached your idea and how you try to have the grit or the feeling right?
Yeah, you know the sequences in Indiana Jones when they travel somewhere and you have this huge map and you see the red line go like that across the world, and you stop by in Dubai and you stop by in Delhi and so on to get to Kathmandu. I wanted that feeling.
Yeah.
So I took great care about every place you go. How do you get there? What is the airport called? How do you get from there to the city? Where are the train stations? are the taxi services in town. So I took a great care about that. Every place you go, there should be, how do you get there? Also visa troubles, if you need to do that, if you need any special vaccinations and so on. The more information you have about that, the easier it gets to make that feeling of traveling internationally. And also have that little in a nutshell box that gives you a short briefing of what is important about this place. So you get the feeling almost immediately as you land there that this is not Frankfurt anymore. This is Kathmandu in Nepal. This is Sydney in Australia. And suddenly things are different.
Yeah. And having this imagination of the different places and seeing at these airports and stuff always differently and having it changed up a little bit does make it in a way always new and making the experience more difficult and incorporating always different kind of challenges with it, right? So like you said, the vaccinations, getting them and stuff, it could be a challenge in the first travel section, and a whole different challenges could wait in the airport of Berlin or something like that, right? In the second place.
Somebody comes up to you and calls for your passport.
Yeah.
Goes through it, looks at it with sternness and says, your papers are not in order.
The classic one.
Oh, yes. And one thing that I found that really helps is a huge map.
Yeah.
To just flip out that big tourist map-like thing over the place. Okay, you arrive here, your hotel is there. That also helps a lot. Suddenly you have something to look at, something tangible of that place.
Yeah. And the one thing that I just recently learned, like today, in fact, is that the character sheets are like passports. That's I need to compliment you, because that's like a genius idea to incorporate the feeling and the vibe of traveling and showing the passport like for real. How did that idea come from? Or where did it come from?
I realized sometime that a character sheet in normal role-playing games is like your tax returns.
Yeah.
It's that boring. So if you have an international flying, what form would be most appropriate for an international travel game?
I see.
Of course, we called our character sheet the passport instead.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, I don't recall who, but if it's called the passport, it must be a passport.
It must be, yeah.
So I started to look into it, and at first I thought it was prohibitively expensive to make them as a passport, but then I said, oh fuck, hell and high water, I will make this as a passport. 32 pages, Murray monster, pattern in the background, and I mean, you could have a few pages with personal data and then gently slide out into game data, and then have the rest as space for notes and for visa stamps.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fantastic idea to incorporate the idea of adventures or campaigns being a journey in of itself, and completing it with a stamp, and you manage to really, you manage the journey in both literal sense and in a game kind of way. And actually the German translators, Green Gorilla have like stamps for each convention. So if you travel to Spiel or to the DreieichCon, you get a stamp like for journeying, right? And traveling with Green Gorilla, and it's such a great idea.
I will steal that idea.
Yeah. And we're going full circle again. Great stuff. I just got a question regarding the system, and myself, as you said, each and every one who GMs or DMs is in a way an author, and me as a beginning author in creating TTRPGs and dabbling with it a little bit, I always find myself struggling with the game system, and I always got a great idea, like you said, why isn't this and that not a TTRPG? Why isn't anyone making this? And how do you, or how would you say, should everyone approach designing a game system on the ideas? How do you approach that?
First, if you're inexperienced, just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most important things. Just do it.
Yeah.
Don't care about how great the product is, because you will learn on the journey.
Yeah.
After that, think about what is important to your game.
Yeah.
Is it exploring of dungeons? Is it exploring of old libraries? Fighting monsters, whatever. And then focus on how do you make that thing exciting.
Yeah.
As for the Troubleshooters, I found that the great thing about French and Belgian comics is the one important thing is that nobody ever dies.
Yeah.
But it's very, very easy to get kidnapped or knocked out cold or captured and found suddenly you wake up in a cell somewhere. That always happens.
Yeah.
So there should be a mechanism for rewarding that behavior, so that, unlike in many fantasy games, you fight to the death.
Yeah.
And when you're dead, you make a new character. Yeah. I don't want that behavior. I want people to actually surrender.
Yeah.
And give up. So there comes the story point mechanism, and that in turn got into the abilities and complications. So you use those story points you get for being captured to activate abilities, and then you're not captured all the time, so you need some way to replenish that pool anyway.
Yeah.
So that how complications got in there. Plus, that complications make your character more interesting.
They do.
And that was the other thing. Everyone in a French and Belgian comic book is not perfect.
Yeah.
They have their little quirks.
Quirks, right, yeah.
You may think that Tintin is perfect in everything, but he's pretty naive, actually.
Yeah.
Haddock is more obvious with his alcoholism. Professor Calculus and his bad hearing.
Yeah.
All these things add to the character, make them unique and fun.
Yeah. And so incorporating or not thinking about a good dice system or stuff, but focusing on the idea, the core idea, and making it interesting would be the most valuable point at creating TTRPGs, right?
I think so. I mean, you can have all these fascinating systems, but dice rolling mechanism, but most of them have done.
Yeah, yeah.
So take one you like.
Yeah.
And do and which does what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we all just roll dice, and so inventing or new inventing of rolling the dice isn't the interesting part, right? It's the worlds we create, and the idea of what we do in the TTRPGs is the core part. Yeah, I see that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, people are busy finding new ways of rolling dice in the 1980s and 90s.
Yeah.
We have done all that.
Yeah. We are done with it. Stop it. Yeah.
And we invented basically every dice mechanism that you could invent.
Yeah, yeah.
So I settled on the classical D100.
Yeah.
Because you get so much information from a percentage dice.
Yeah. So finding the most fitting way of rolling the dice at the end of the day isn't the key factor. It's having the idea of what makes my TTRPG different from everyone else, and how to incorporate the vibe and the idea is the most challenging, right? Challenging part, and the most important one at the end of the day.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So having this in mind, my question would be how I start differently. Where or what exactly was the most fun part whilst you were playing Troubleshooters with other players, and where players felt the most vibe at the table for you? Or do you have a special group or situation where you can imagine or memorize more fittingly the most favorite sequence when it happened?
I think the most memorable event that ever happened, it's actually in the rule book. It's an example where Eloise, that was my character.
Yeah, that was yours?
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
So she's like 16-year-old wonder kid in technology, always sleepy.
Yeah.
Always worries about the next test.
Okay. Yeah.
And stuffed away at a Catholic girls' school just because her mother wants to have fun. So we have been captured. We are, and the evil overlord von Sadritz is starting to tell his villain speech. Muhaha! You can never stop my evil, and so on. And just out of a whim, we had been captured, so I had the full pool of story points. So I just paid a big bunch of it to change the world and say, "But Dad, please stop being such a B-movie villain. You're just a pastiche of a movie of a villain in the Bond movie." And the game master director, he just rolled with the punch and, "Pumpkin, what are you doing here?" "I'm being captured by my evil Bond villain dad."
Great idea.
That was
situation.
At that moment. I felt that the game master and the other players instantly got what the game was about.
Yeah. And that being said, I feel that Troubleshooters has this special effect, sort of to say, of being so light-hearted and allowing such things like these quirky discussions and breaking character in a way, but don't breaking character.
Evolving character.
Yeah.
I didn't know that Eloise's dad was the great villain in the game until that moment.
Yeah.
And well, now it's a part of the game lore.
Yeah. Great, by the way, great. So that being said, was that always the idea that you had in mind while creating Troubleshooters, or did that again appear naturally, that it is so lighthearted and so different than other TTRPGs?
I wanted it lighthearted.
Oh, okay.
Because, well, of course, because of the sources of inspiration,
sure. Yeah.
But also because I am actually quite tired of all the grimdark games.
Ah, I see.
I mean, everyone seems to be competing about how to make their games darker and more grim and more bloody. And I got tired of it.
Yeah, I can imagine. So that's in a way still part of the TTRPG community, I feel, at least in Germany. That's what I would say, that everyone is trying to get darker and moodier and stylisher, I guess.
But that game is over. I mean, Mörk Borg is out.
They won.
Exactly.
They won. Plain and simple. For the last question, I got a very special one to me. I do ask this question to everyone, but I'm certainly the most excited about your answer, and that would be to explain the vibe of Troubleshooters for yourself and for the viewers. What was your favorite moment playing Troubleshooters for you, and what adventures would you like to play yourself as a player, if you could choose? Two questions.
Two questions.
At once.
The most memorable experience, I think, was that when I play tested one of the upcoming adventures. It's called The Great Champagne Gallop. And the players forced me to improvise a setting for a break-in.
Oh no.
And I had to. I knew who they would steal stuff from, and what they would steal. So I kind of quickly Googled a villa, a really brutalist constructionist villa, which looked like something that a villain could have.
Yeah.
used that as a basis for the break-in, and added my own stuff like security guards and alarm systems and 2 nasty Dobermans.
Classic.
Yes, and that heist was one of the most successful things in that game, in that session. So that I had to steal that one and put it in the adventure officially.
Oh, great!
And that led to that I had to make a map of Milan. And yeah, that was a great experience.
Nice.
What was the other question?
The other question would be if you could.
Ah, yes.
Right.
I think I would like to have a UFO-based adventure.
UFO-based adventure?
Yes, somewhere in the southwest of the US.
Yeah.
Nevada, New Mexico, somewhere around there. And if it somehow included giant spiders or giant ants or something like something other out of a 1950s horror movie,
yeah,
I would love that.
Great. I suppose it would hit my heart. So if anybody out there, or if you could design that adventure, maybe if you played it in the future,
I'd probably have to write that one myself. But
I think that's the stick of this talk at the end of the day. Yeah. Stealing and going full circle and doing it.
Just to do it.
At the end of, right, just
to
do
steal
it.
that slogan from Nike.
Yes, is the underline of this discussion and interview, better said. And thank you so much for your time and being here with us at DreieichCon and doing this interview with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. And that would be the cut, I guess.